My name is Todd B. Waldo. This is Patricia B. Moore. Look at that. We've got both B's in our name. That's exciting. If you didn't know, she is the author of Blackinese, Reflections on Race and Ethnicity from a Biracial Millennial. And we're going to have a conversation about her process. We're going to do this in 5 different segments. And so we'll invite you to watch the whole thing. You can skip through it. But we'll go from actually why she did this in the first place and through the entire process, and then wrap up with some fun reflections. Special thanks to our friends here in Richmond, Virginia at Canvas. Ace and the whole team have been so generous to offer their space. So a special thank you to Canvas. So thanks for watching. Let's get started. So one thing we have in common besides having the same middle initial, we've both published books. We've both done that on our own. And so we've gone through this self-publishing journey. I did it a while ago. You just did it, producing this. I'm curious about why tell this story? Why do it? Why put yourself through this journey?
Well, I think for me, the biggest impetus behind the book was just wanting people to know that they are not alone in their thoughts, in the way that they walk through the world. I started writing this book in 2009 or 2010, so it's been quite a long journey. And I really just wanted to record how I was feeling and what I was thinking as I was growing up and moving through the world, having influence from both sides of my family. And so it wasn't until I got to college in New York that I even recognized that I was one of many people probably thinking a lot of the things that I was thinking. And so that's why I started writing, and I sort of put it down for a while and picked it back up. And what brought us here to this table to speak to all of you was when I finished and I published this book. People were so excited and they celebrated with me, and I had quite a few people say to me, I've always wanted to write a book. I'm in the middle of writing a book. What did you learn along the way? What can you share with me? And I want to keep sharing, but I also thought there's probably people who I won't come in contact with who feel the same kind of way, and I would love to sort of share a bit about my journey in not really writing the book, but getting the words out to other people.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? What did I learn along the way? What do I wish somebody would have told me? Mm-hmm. And for me, the why of sharing my story was really what made this happen in the first place. If my why of just wanting to connect with other people and use my story to help others want to find their story and share their story and learn other people's stories, if that why hadn't been so strong, mm-hmm. this book probably wouldn't exist. Because I always think everything is easier than it really is.
Is part of the why also the channel of a book? There are a lot of ways to tell a story. You could have recorded a podcast. You could have created a piece of art. You could have done a live show, but you wrote a book. Why a book? Why was that the best way to get the why fulfilled?
Great question. I think writing is becoming a bit of a lost art. So I like the idea of writing things down. I think there's power in words. And of course, you can have words through conversations like this, through video or audio. But I also recorded it as an audiobook. So that's a thing. You can listen to it on Spotify and where audiobooks are found. But for me, the writing was important. We live in a culture where people have a very short attention span. We live in the midst of the attention economy. And I think the idea of people taking the time to slow down and read and flip through the pages of a book is important. You can go as fast or as slow as you want to. Not to say that you can't do that with audio or video, but it is a different experience if you want to keep rewinding to re-listen to the last 15 seconds. Is different than sitting and looking at words.
Yeah.
So the book was really intentional. Inside of the book, at the beginning of each part, there are 3 parts to the book. I have some illustrations, doodles, and I do that after church on Sundays. I will post my doodles from my church notes to my Instagram, and that's kind of how some people have found me. And they resonate with those notes. And so I said, I'd like to do the same sort of thing with the book. And so again, if it wasn't in print, I wouldn't be able to do that. And so that's been kind of cool too, to be able to weave that in.
I didn't know you doodled until I saw it on Instagram. I didn't know it was in the book. And then I get to like, oh, her doodles, her doodles are here. There are a number of ways to get a book created and printed and out in the world. I know it was important to me. I think I learned this in music initially. Like, I want to own my things. I want to distribute my things. I want to control the process. And I need help. Like, I can't edit this myself.
Right.
I just wanted to own it. Similar for you, and thinking about, okay, I know it's a book that will fulfill the why. I can write the words, but the words have to get bound in. So why self-publish? Why that route?
Really good question. I asked a lot of people what their writing journeys were like before I decided to put this book out. And so I wanted to understand. I talked to folks who had gone the traditional publishing route and who had done self-publishing. I talked to some people who knew about hybrid publishing. I didn't talk to anybody who had actually done it. But I wanted to learn from their experience, and sort of my takeaway from those conversations was you can go the traditional publishing route. You may or may not actually find a traditional publisher that wants to work for you. So there's sort of like a barrier there already, is like finding a publisher that is interested in the story you're trying to tell. But then there's also things that come along with that. So when you work with a traditional publisher, normally they do get a say in what the content is, and how that content is presented, and they like to use their own editors, and they maybe are trying to talk to a particular audience. And I just had such a clear vision for what I wanted this book to be and how I wanted to tell my story, and I wanted complete control over the creative. But also it comes back to what you were saying, so like rights and royalties. So I wanted those creative rights, but the royalties also are a big part of that. Like when you work with a publisher, they will sometimes give you an advance. And so you are working to sell books to recoup that advance so that they can get their money back plus some. So self-publishing gives you more royalties as well, which is great. Mm-hmm. Hybrid is a little bit of both worlds, right? So when you're working with a traditional publisher, you may not have to put in any of your own money. Like they are putting up the upfront costs, which is why they get to hold on to that control and why they get to make money off of it. So in hybrid publishing, you're putting in some of your money, they're putting in some money, but they're also bringing resources to the table. And a lot of the discussion I was having with people who'd published before was, after you write the book, you think the hardest part is over. And the reality is like, that part is hard, but there's a different kind of hard that's coming. So now you have to get the book out into the world. And so like, how do you do that? And if you're a person who hasn't worked in like marketing or PR or comms, like that might be a difficult thing. But I actually really enjoy that part of the process. I'm like getting to do things like this, getting to partner with organizations that might be interested. And so I said, well, if that's the bulk of the resource they're bringing to the table, and that's the thing I enjoy the most, and I feel like I have built up my network in a way that I can do some things on my own, I think I just want to try to put this book out on my own. And the biggest thing for me, I think, was timeline. Like when you're working with traditional publishers, you're on their timeline. And that could be longer or shorter than what you want it to be. But by the time I was having these conversations, I was ready to just like have this book be out. Yeah. And so I didn't want to take the time to try to meet with publishers, to try to sell them on the concept of my book, to work with their editors. I was like, I want to be in control of that timeline, and I want to get the book out.
Yeah. One more question around this decision of the why it's a book. We're going to go hybrid. Did you evaluate more than one option? You knew it was going to be hybrid. Did you kind of this vendor or this partner, this vendor or this partner? How did you pick who you actually ended up working with?
Great question. I evaluated a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I read a lot. The internet has so much information, right? Like the Reddit posts and threads and subreddits and all the things. And what I was learning is people were saying like, there are different vendors that are good at different things.
Okay.
And so I said, okay, well, I work full time for a tech company that does integrations, and we always talk about people wanting to have the best of breed of all of the different types of applications. And so I kind of had that ingrained in me now. It's like, you want the best of breed. And so I was like, I want the best of breed for each thing. And so Ingram Spark sort of rose to the top as sort of like the best for print publishing, and then Draft to Digital rose to the top as sort of like the best for digital distribution of like ebooks. And then Find Away Voices was the one that I found for audiobook. They recently got bought out and are now in audio. So I'm registered with them, as well as Spotify for authors, because that's a separate thing. And then, of course, there's Amazon. Amazon was a hard one.
Yeah.
That was like a really hard decision for me. But part of writing this book was to get the words out to as many people as I could. And even though the book is really about my experience as an American, I think I have a lot of friends who live outside of this country who are interested in the story I'm trying to tell. I wanted to make it as easy as possible for them to get a hold of the book. And so Amazon was the route to get there. I've learned a lot in engaging with Kindle Direct Publishing. So Amazon is Amazon KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. There are different things that you need to know when you are publishing with these different types of vendors. What I learned the hard way is that Amazon kind of controls the publishing industry at this point. They will help you set your pricing, which I thought was kind of crazy. And I don't know, like, when I went to partner with some of the independent booksellers here in Richmond, I came up against, like, they are trying to combat Amazon owning this industry. And I get that, right? I like to root for the underdog. And I wanted to partner with these bookstores, but some bookstores now are saying, if you sell on Amazon, we will not carry your book.
Wow.
And honestly, I don't blame them. I applaud that. I didn't know that till after I'd already done the publishing, so I can't pull it back now. But I think that was a learning, and I think that's something that, like, I want people to know. Like, if you're publishing a book, just think about, before you hit publish, think about who are the organizations and the bookstore specifically that you want to partner with when you put this book out, because there are some institutions that are really looking out for themselves and their own, and these smaller bookshops, and they're saying, like, we're not going to support KDP, we're not going to support Amazon. So now I know, and now I'm telling all of you, sharing that knowledge. But I think thus far, it has been an interesting learning to be on these different platforms and to see how it works, because, I publish to Ingram Spark, but then they distribute to other places where you can buy this book. So sometimes that's independent booksellers, sometimes that's places like Barnes and Nobles that you know really well. And the timeline for that to happen is different with every bookseller, and same thing for digital distribution, same thing for audiobooks. So I published my book on August 1st of 2025. Today is, September 12th, 13th.
Yes, something like that.
Something like that. And my book is still not available on Audible. It's processing. I have zero visibility as to when it will actually show up on Audible. But it is processing. It's in the works. That's part of using these vendors, is being able to get on all of these platforms by engaging with one vendor. So lots of learnings there.
Up next, we're going to dive deeper into the process. So we'll spend a little bit of time next talking about the dollars and cents of this, but also the human beings that were around you as you published your book. I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about money, because you don't do this for free. But then I want to talk about the human beings that were on your team, just the people around you, to bring this to fruition. So if you can remember, I know we've got some notes in front of us. I'm curious about how did you financially plan for this? How much money is involved? Because what you spent is not what I spent when I did this before. But I don't think I did a good job of budgeting, really, or estimating sales. So I'm curious, what did your budget look like to get this out in the world?
I am a person of transparency. And so the honest truth is that I did not build a budget for this project.
All right.
I said, I want to put a book out and we're just gonna figure it out as we go. And what we figured out is that it is expensive to publish a book in the way that I did it. And I wanna make sure that I say that because you can publish a book for a lot less money than what I paid. But I am one of those people where I'm like, best of breed all the time. I want to put my best foot forward, and sometimes there's a cost to that. I was in a conversation with some folks last night about taking risk and no risk, no reward. And the reality was, I said to myself, I've put many years, much time, much energy into writing this book. And so if I'm going to put it out into the world, I want it to be the best that it can be. And so what does that mean in terms of dollars? So transparently, I've put about $10,000 into this book.
Mm-hmm.
I would say half of that money went into editing. So I found an editor. I wanted to work with a professional. I've never written a book before. I've done some writing, but mostly for my own sake or for corporate, which is a different voice. It's a different style. And I wanted this book to sound like me. And so I worked with a professional editor who helped me with developmental editing, which is really thinking about the storyline, but then also like the line editing, so grammar, punctuation, that kind of thing. So that has a cost. And then there's design and formatting. This is where I really learned a lot. So I don't know if people know, when you pick up a book, the next time you go to the bookstore or just in your own home library, I want you to look at the books that are there. I want you to look at the fonts that they're using. Can I use this as an example?
Yeah.
So I want you to look at the fonts that are on the spine. I want you to look at, is there anything else? Is the publisher imprint there? On the cover, what catches your eye about a book? So now when I walk through the bookstore, I'm thinking to myself, like, what makes a bookstore want to put this particular book here? Is it the fact that it's a bestseller, or is it pretty, or does it balance the colors? Do you at home organize your bookshelf by colors? People do that.
Yeah.
I didn't know. When you open the book, so that's just talking about the cover, right? And also we could talk about the back cover, like, do they have quotes? Like, did people endorse this? You would need those endorsements before you design the cover. These are things no one's thinking about. And by no one, I mean me in particular. But like when you open a book and you think about like the beginning of a chapter, is the chapter number there? How big is the header?
Yeah.
Are there different parts, like sections within a book? How big is that header? What does the spacing look like? How big are the margins? Where are the page numbers, top or bottom? Does it tell you the name of the book or the name of the chapter? There's all of these things,
yeah.
right? And I like literally didn't even know where to begin. And so you hire professionals, you hire people that know. And so I hope everyone that has seen a copy of this book and will see a copy of this book feels like it was very professionally done. I do. I paid someone smarter than me to figure out what to use and how to do that. And that also costs money. So cover design, typesetting, you're looking at like another $4-ish grand, like $4,000, depending on which vendors you use. And then a smaller cost, but an important cost, is the ISBNs. So when you purchase a book, the ISBN is how they're tracking the sales of that book and the movement of that book. And so it's not the barcode, but it's associated with the barcode. And so when you publish through a imprint like Amazon KDP, for free, they will include an ISBN. I chose not to do that. I chose to use my own ISBNs. And so, again, going back to like ownership, those ISBNs help you track sales. So if I had used the one that KDP gave me, I can't use that same ISBN on Ingram Spark.
Right.
But because I own my ISBNs, I can say to Ingram Spark and to Amazon, like, use this ISBN for the paperback. You do need different ISBNs for different formats. So like I had to use 4. So I have one for paperback, I have one for the hardcover version, I have one for audiobook, and one for ebook. But the ISBN is the same for the paperback across vendors, right? It's the same for the hardcover across vendors. And so you get those. There's an online website. It's called Bowker, Bowker, and you will purchase them there. And so for one, it's $125. And then for 10, it's $295. So for those of us who maybe don't want to do math right now, if you paid $125 for one, you would then pay $250 for two. And what they've done is they said, no, at $295, you get 10.
Yeah.
And so because I needed 4, 10 made sense.
Might as well get 10.
Might as well get 10. And now I have 6 remaining for later.
If anyone wants to buy an ISBN, hit her up. She'll give you a really good rate.
I'll give you a really good rate. And I'm going to tell you right now, don't buy it from me. So I had this idea, transparency for the viewers at home. I know people who've written books, they bought 10 because why wouldn't you? And I said, instead of me going to buy some, why don't I just buy them off of these people? And what I and that individual learned in the process is you can't transfer them. So once you buy them,
they're proprietary to you.
They are proprietary to you. And so I then said, okay, that's not going to work. So if you want me to be the publisher, my imprint is 804 Press. If you want to put your book out through 804 Press, contact me. We can set that up. I've got 6 ISBNs ready. But honestly, my best advice is for you to buy your own. Like, you need to own your own work.
Because that, I know, very similar, I'm going to talk about this next, very similar to setting up a business and getting your ID, like that federal ID. That was a big moment. When I got my ISBN, I was like, I got my number. Like, it felt legit and real.
Yes.
To have that number. I was like, and I will always have that. I'll always have that thing. Did that feel the same for you? Was that a milestone to actually get that number, and could it make it more real?
Yes. And I think the more overwhelming feeling was like, did I do this right? It was less of like a celebration, more like, oh, I hope I did this right. Like, I hope I put the information in right, and I hope I actually own these. I do. Yes. Good news, I do, and I did do it right. But I think with anything we do, there's always a level of imposter syndrome, especially when you're doing something for the first time. And so, thank goodness for the ChatGPT and Perplexity-like tools in my life to sort of like double check myself on did I do the thing right. So, and I did.
You set up an LLC as well?
I set up an LLC before I decided to put the book out.
Okay.
We are still on a learning journey through what that means. So my LLC was set up to do coaching and consulting work. And so I set up a separate DBA, so doing business as. You sign up for a fictitious business certificate through the State Corporation Commission, so Virginia SEC. And so 804 Press is a separate entity within my LLC, more ideation. But I wanted to make that official because I said to myself, hopefully people will be writing checks, not actual physical checks, maybe, but people will be spending money towards this business. We hope to try to recoup some of those costs that we've talked about. And I wanted them to be able to do that to 804 Press. So,
any other legal setup? Was an attorney involved? Like, how do you protect yourself?
There was an attorney involved, and I will say I don't know if everybody needs to go this route.
Sure.
I decided to do it because my book is DEI focused, right? So diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is part of the point of me writing this book, is for people to feel included, and for diversity to be valued, and for the world to be more equitable. And so knowing that and knowing the environment that we are currently in, I said to myself, there are things in this book that could be controversial. There are examples that I give where I name people, I've changed their names. I wanted to make sure that I did that correctly, right? I wanted to make sure that when I did name institutions and celebrities, people who are in the public eye, that I did that in such a way, or I wrote my copyright page and liabilities disclaimers in such a way that I am protected. The reality is you're never fully protected. But I did want to consult a legal professional to say, this is what I'm concerned about. Tell me what you know. tell me if I should tweak these words in any sort of way that might give me better protection, because these are the words that I want to say, but I want to be smart about it. And so that also comes with a cost. And so I can't say how much it costs to work with any legal firm. I can say the legal firm I worked with from the onset, like, you can't even have a conversation without putting down an amount of money that they use as the retainer that will go towards your end bill. So like that was $750.
Yeah.
And then some other things ensued. It actually, like, the final bill, I think, was somewhere around $4,000, which had to be negotiated for a number of reasons. I won't go into the details there. But, you know, what I will say is what I learned through that process is that you need to keep a close eye on what people are doing for you and how they're billing them. And mostly, I hope you are working with people who are billing for things that you are seeing the fruits of that labor. If you are not, speak up for yourself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people in the world that are paying a lot of money that they don't need to pay, that they don't owe, because they're not reading their bills thoroughly and they're not speaking up for themselves. So money's not growing on trees. Speak up for yourself.
Yeah.
Read those invoices.
You and I are both leaders in organizations. We are responsible for big budgets, and we are always having conversations around particular investments, money, time, effort, energy towards some kind of return. Sometimes that's money. Sometimes it's people live differently. It's a different kind of measurement. Did you pick an ROI? Did you say, all right, I'm going to put all of this money, all of this time, all this effort. This is the ROI for this book and this work?
Kind of. I would be remiss if I didn't say that I calculated a few numbers. As a person with an MBA, you always are putting numbers into spreadsheets. But I did not set out to be like a New York Times bestseller. Like, to me, I said, you know, if I sell 5 copies of this book to someone who is not in my social circle, so to strangers, because I talk a lot. And then, so a lot of these stories are things that people that I know, friends and family, have heard before. And so I said, if I do that, I've reached a goal, not the goal, but a goal.
Yeah.
So that was one of my goals. Another one of my goals was breaking even. So like I said, I'm not here to be a New York Times bestseller, but money isn't growing on trees. I've just transparently shared, I put $10,000 of my hard-earned money into this book. I would like to make that money back. Because of the way royalties work, there isn't sort of like a hard, fast rule around how many books I need to sell in order to make that money back, because every platform is paying me differently because I put it out in different formats. You know, I'm going to make a lot less money if you stream the audiobook than if you buy the ebook, than if you buy, a print book. And so, like, in my head, roughly, I think the number I came up with was like 1,300. If 1,300 books go out into the world, then I will roughly make back my money. We'll see how that goes. I think I'm at 215. So, like, we're chipping away.
Making progress. Last question before we actually talk about the writing itself, the actual words. For me, writing a book fulfilled a sense of call and purpose. I had a conviction that I was an artist, but I wasn't creating art that people could experience. And so as a poet, I took a year's worth of poetry and I put it in the book and I put it out into the world. But I absolutely felt like an imposter. Like, am I good? Are you going to read it? Is this dope? Like, I felt naked and vulnerable, and I put these stories and they were like, are you, what? This happened to you? Like, but I knew there was intention behind that. And I knew it fulfilled a sense of call. Do you feel like less of an imposter now that it's done? Like, we've read it and we've experienced it. Like, I know new things about you I didn't know before. Do you feel like less of an imposter on this side of it now that it's done, it's published, it's beautiful, people are reacting to it?
You know, yes and no.
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome is a funny thing, because even once you've done something, there's always going to be people who have done that thing longer than you, who know more than you. But then the other side of that reality is every industry is always changing. And so nobody is a complete expert on any topic. And so there are days where I'm like, I am an author. Because the truth is I am. There's a real book here. You can buy it right now. And hopefully soon you'll be able to rent it from your library. So, I feel that, and that feels accomplishment. But there are times when I think to myself, like, I could have done something differently, or maybe like I'm not really, even for this conversation right now, like, am I really in a position to give advice? I've put out one book. But I said to myself, I asked a lot of people who had written one book what their experience was, and that information was really helpful to me. And so, yes and no. Like, it depends on the environment and the circumstance, but I feel like I have accomplished many of the goals that I set out to accomplish with this book. The goalpost is always moving. That's the funny thing with goals, is like once you reach this point, then there's another point you want to reach. But that's also the beauty of it. And so we're getting there. Mostly I've combated the imposter syndrome. There's always going to be a little bit there, but you've got to face your fears, like courage. That's what that is.
Thank you.
I love it.
So next, we're going to dive into writing the words and writing them again. So more to come. We've been talking a lot about this wonderful book of yours. So we're going to talk about the words. First, I want to talk about the words on the outside. So you mentioned in the last chapter, there's a lot of intention around the design of this, and you had people help you. So before we get to the words on the inside, let's talk about the words a bit on the outside, like who helped you craft this, shape this. There's a look, there's a feel here.
Yes.
Who'd you call upon?
I was really lucky, am really lucky to have a lot of creatives in my circle.
Yeah.
And so for that piece, I was like, I could use a vendor that is a stranger, or I could use someone in my circle. And I'm always going to try to use someone in my circle. So Megan Price Design. Megan Price is a good friend of mine. We met through TEDx RVA, which is how I met you. Good people who are really talented. And she said to me, I've always wanted to do a book cover. That's so cool that you're putting out a book. And I was like, always? How's now? How about now?
Yeah.
And so, she asked me for what my vision was for the cover. I had some vague ideas. My original idea looked a lot like the book Yellowface, which was a New York Times bestseller. And I was like, well, you can't do that now. So I told her, I said, you have creative license to sort of like just bring me a few ideas. And the thing I loved about working with her is that she really knows me. And I think that also goes for the person that did the typesetting as well. Like, these are my good friends. And so when someone knows you, they will try to work that into the work. And I would not have thought to make my book pink with red letters, coral letters. And I love it. I do feel like it's me. It's bright and it's happy. It catches your eye. I like that the words go vertical down the front cover. I wouldn't have thought of that. It's kind of fun. It's kind of funky. And it's the thing I also was worried about was that because this book does talk about some hard topics, that people would see the title and they would shy away from it. And so we were really intentional about not sort of honing in on any visuals that were going to make people think, oh, this is a book that talks about race, which we do. That is what the book is about. But we want it to be approachable. And I think she did a great job in that. And, both the person that was working on the cover and Jana Bertner, Jana B, did the typesetting. They also were talking to one another because the things that were happening inside of the book also affect what's happening on the outside of the book and vice versa. You want there to be some sort of cohesiveness in that design. And that was really, really helpful that they knew each other and they were comfortable with each other. So it was good because I had people that I could trust, that had experience, that were reliable, that I was comfortable with. And that level of comfort is really important because you want to be able to give feedback. if you like something or you don't like something. And I think when you're working with people that you don't really know that well, that are experts in their field, you may have a tendency to lean towards the things that they want to do, even if it's not the way you wanted it or the way that feels right to you. You might think it feels right for publishing. And what does that even mean? So really intentional about who I worked with and how we did this work, and really happy with how it turned out.
I was taught that to write a book, I needed discipline. I needed to develop a habit of writing. Because of my dyslexia, reading and writing, I have to go very, very slowly, very intentionally. So I had to write every day. That was and I had to write not necessarily for a book. I just had to write. I just needed reps. Similar for you, because you said before you were just writing, right? Were you just writing and then decided, now I need to write with intention towards a book? Like what? You just had to get the words out. What was it like for you to start getting the words out?
When I first writing, I said, this is going to be a book. So I had that in my head. But the reason that I found a professional editor and paid this person more money than I thought it costs, but it was worth every penny. When you go to something, you just don't know how much something costs, right? But it was worth it, because even though I know I was writing towards a book, I didn't write it in chronological order, right? So like I was writing things down as they were occurring to me. Like you have a flashback memory and you're like, ooh, I should write that down and I should tell that story. And so I had them and I tried to assemble them in some kind of order, but it took a separate set of eyes to sort of say, oh, actually, this feels like it connects here, and this feels like it connects here. And so, yes, anyone could sort of look at them and say, chronological order says this, but it's more than that. And so I did create a writing practice, even to just write creatively. So outside of writing the book, I have a Substack. It's called Pursuing Passion. I put it out once a month. I talk about people I tell someone else's story, who is doing something that is their passion to generate revenue. And the impetus for that was I was coming across people in my social circle or otherwise who were job hunting, and they just were having a hard time finding their next gig. And I just kept saying, well, have you thought more creatively about what you could be doing? So like you've always been this identity as far as professional work goes, but you have all these other interests. Like, are there other things that you could be doing to support yourself? Maybe you want to explore that, maybe you don't. So then I said, I know all these people who do cool things that the average person doesn't know is a job. I should tell those stories. And so I sit down and I have 30 to 45-minute interviews with somebody for them to tell me what they believe is their job, and how they look at it might be different from how we look at it. But that process of having to take their stories and write those down in my own voice is so different from the writing that I do in my day job at work. And so that for me was like a practice. So there was a practice of like, write in the voice that is you. And then there's the practice of write for this book. And I tried a bunch of different things. I'll be honest, I never really found a thing that worked. People were like, I have this time I set aside. I wake up every day at 5 and I write for 30 minutes. And like, my life just isn't set up like that. Like every day is different. On a day that I've been up working late, I'm not gonna wake up at 5 a.m. the next day. Like, beauty sleep is a part of my regimen. And so like, I have to get that 7 to 8 hours of sleep every single night. And so, we went through some phases where we tried to make a regular routine, but I think the biggest thing for me was just to make sure that I'm writing. And so that might be at a different time, in a different place, about a different subject for a different amount of time, but just keep writing.
I felt so much pressure to produce, and creative writing, I don't know if it's the same for you, but creative writing, if I'm not feeling creative, I can't do it. Like, nothing's gonna come out, and so now I'm spinning out. I ain't got nothing to write, or I write something that's bad. It's just bad. And so I think what I hear is you gave yourself some grace.
Yes.
Right? To just be in it. Was there a deadline? Did you say, okay, well, we gotta write, and at some point I have to stop? Was there a deadline in this process or?
At the end.
Okay.
So, I started writing down words around 2009, 2010, and then I sort of put the book away for a number of years. Like, I didn't pick back up until 2020. So we're in the pandemic, we're stuck at home. Asian hate is rising due to COVID-19, Black Lives Matter resurgence. I was asked to write a piece for the Cheats movement. So Mark Cheatham, a friend of yours, a friend of mine, asked me to write this essay. The premise of the essay was similar to what this book was based on. And the reactions from people who read that essay told me, you need to finish writing this book. Like, do it. And so I started writing more. So now that was 2020. Top of 2024, I said to myself, if you actually do want to put this book out, you need to sit down and finish. Like, you've got a lot of content here, but you need to sit down and finish. And so 2024, I said to myself, by the end of this year, you will have a full manuscript. And part of that actually came from, I went to the James River Writers Conference in 2023 and met with an agent. If you have an opportunity to do this, you should. At that point in time, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do traditional publishing or not. And her biggest thing to me was, you can't have a conversation until you have a book. For this particular genre, for memoir. Yeah. So if you're doing like fiction, I think you can pitch an idea and you don't need a full manuscript. But for something like a memoir, you need the full manuscript. And so when she said that, I said, okay, if I'm really serious about this, I need to finish writing. So that was sort of the first kickoff. And then for me, it was like, no one's forcing you to do this. You are your own publisher, so you need to put that deadline in. And so at the top of every year, I have a word that is sort of like my inspiration for the year. This year's word is release. It wasn't intended to mean release the book, but it did.
Sure.
But it was sort of just like, release the things that are weighing you down. Yeah. We hold on to a lot of things that we don't need to hold on to. But in 2024, the word was book. And it wasn't like be creative and interpret it as you will. No, it means
clear
book. The actual book. Make the book happen. And it did. Like, I set that word of intention with a couple of friends. They're in the acknowledgement. So Nadia and Lindsay, thank you. We hold each other accountable. We check back in throughout the year and we're like, what was your word? How is that feeling? How is that manifesting in your life? And so I also just told as many people as I could. My personal trainer, met with him once a week. Every single week, he'd be like, how's the book coming? Right? So to your point of like, I didn't have set time every day to work on the book, but I had told so many people and asked them to ask me to hold me accountable that even though I wasn't making specific space and time, I was making space and time because people were holding me accountable. And that's like what your community is for.
Yeah.
So.
I titled this Write and Then Write Again. You had an editor. I'm wondering about, like, I remember disagreeing. Like, that's not, no, I don't want to say it that way. He's like, well, no, this makes more sense. I was like, no, it doesn't. And do it this way. She's like, okay, I've been writing longer than you. I think I know. She was right. Like the writing again part, because this is you.
Yeah.
How tightly did you hold this so that you could write again and edit and change and get it to final form?
I tried to keep an open mind. I had a really great editor, so shout out to Erica's editing. Erica also can relate to the stories in this book. So I was intentional about finding someone who looked like me. What do I mean when I say that? Somebody who is biracial or multiracial. Like, you have had multiple ethnicities influencing the way you walk through the world. And so I wanted someone who could give me honest feedback around the way that I am saying things. Now, we did have a few times where she gave me some edits and I had to say to her, like, that's actually not what I'm trying to say. Or I would say, you have a valid point, but that is not the intention of this particular section. And she was really good about being respectful of the edits to the edits that I was making. And so I really was leaning on her expertise, and both of us, she and I, were really intentional about making sure that my voice was shining through. And I was really thankful for that. But you do have to be able to give feedback to the people who are giving you feedback. Because some of it, to your point, some of it is their expertise, but some of it is just like who you are and what you're trying to say and the voice that you're trying to give to that story. And it is a hard dance to dance, but you have to.
Yeah. Did you know, so there's all of these words. So did you know it was going to be called Blackinese? Did you know it's going to be Reflections on Race and Ethnicity? I'm a Biracial Millennial. Is that the title of your Google Doc? Like what? Did you know?
Oh, my Google Doc is like book. Really professional.
When did you decide this is what we're going to call it?
So I think Blackinese was the first title that I came up with. And honestly, I wasn't sure if it was going to stick. It's not a real word. And someone said it on the playground. I say this in the book.
Yeah.
Someone else said that to me when I was a kid, and not maliciously, like in an inclusive kind of way, wanting the other kids to understand that like I have multiple ethnicities that I represent. And I did not grow up in a place where that was common. And so as I was writing this book, I was like, if I wanted something that's short and sweet, that's really what this book is about. It's about being Blackinese. That's what the book is about. I did get some feedback from some folks that were like, oh, interesting. But Google's also not a word, or it wasn't a word, and now it's a word. So, if that's what you feel comfortable with. So we just kind of ran with it. And the subtitle actually was my editor's idea.
Wow.
And brilliant idea. Thank you, Erica. When you are trying to market a book and you title it a word that is not a word, how are people going to find that?
Yeah.
So this goes into like metadata and understanding like what are the tags that you're putting on your book? What is the information that you are tying to your book when you register that ISBN? I had to remember to go back and put in additional information that I didn't have when I originally bought the ISBN, right? Like descriptions, genre, keyword tags, that kind of thing. But we went back and forth a few times on the subtitle, like, should it be biracial or should it be multiracial? And that's where like the MBA in me kicks in, right? Like you go to Google Analytics and you're like, what is the SEO on these words? Like I need people, like for people who don't know, who don't work in marketing, so SEO is search engine optimization. So like you want people to find you. So like what are the words that are gonna get people to find you? Who is gonna connect with my stories? It's people who are biracial. It's people who are millennials. Like these are the people. And so let's put that in the subtitle. I think it's working. TBD, check back with me.
Working. Yes.
I think it's working.
Yeah. Not only are there words in this book that are printed, you said words, and so you also did the audiobook is you. So if you listen on any platform, Spotify, Audible, when it's there, they're gonna hear you. What was that like to be in the studio, hands-on, reading every single word that you had written?
It's interesting. You don't read chapter books out loud. Try it. Grab a chapter book. Read it out loud. See how it feels. It's weird. It's weird even when it's like your own words. But honestly, it was good for the editing process. So pro tip, record your audiobook before you finalize and send your book to print, because you will catch things when you're reading out loud that you don't catch when you're just reading through with your eyes. And so that was really good. I had, this is ironic timing. I've always wanted to do voiceovers. I've said this for years. I'm like, the dream job for me is like to do a voiceover for Disney. So if you can make that happen and you're watching, like I would love to do voiceovers for Disney or Pixar. I just think that'd be so fun. So there's a studio in town called In Your Ear. They do, I think twice a year they do this. They do a multi-week class on voice acting. So what are the skills that you need? What are the tricks of the trade? Like they just sort of help you understand how it works and how to get started. And so I signed up and took this class. And wow, that was so great, because as that class was ending, I was getting to the point where it was time to record this audiobook, and I hadn't given any thought to like where I was going to do it or how I was going to do it. And so I used that studio. The sound engineer that recorded that was also the person that taught that course. So I already knew him. We had a rapport. And it made it really easy for that feedback piece. Again, it's that comfort level of knowing the person. And his reactions to each chapter when we would wrap were affirming for me, that it was resonating with other people. So that was really interesting. There were a couple other people in the building that he had told that I was recording this book, and they came down to meet me one day when I was recording because they were interested in the content. And so like, these are good signs. These are really good signs. So that was really neat. But the process of recording the book was interesting. To hear yourself say the words out loud, like I said, is so different than to read them. But it also was really cool to get to tell the story. I like the idea that people can hear me read this book to them, because one of my favorite things is to listen to audiobooks that are autobiographies, right? So like, when I used to have a job that I had to go into the office, I would ride in the car with Trevor Noah, Michelle Obama. You know, like, it's like you pick an autobiography, you listen to it in the car, and it's like they're in the car with you telling a story. And that was really, really fun. And so the feedback that I'm getting from folks as they're starting to listen to the audiobook is they're like, it's so cool that it's in your voice. And I enjoyed it. It was a cool process. I had to go back in to punch some things. They sent me the files to listen back to, and there are some things that maybe weren't what I wanted them to be. There were some edits that I found even after we recorded the audiobook that I was like, oh, actually, that's not right. I think one of them was like, I said something about Somalian restaurants, and it's not Somalian, it's Somali. So I wanted to go back and make these edits. And you can do that, but just recognize, let's go back to pricing. Everything costs money. So you pay for that studio time. And when you have to go back and make edits, you pay for that studio time. But that's why it's so important that you work with somebody you're comfortable with, so that you can make the most of that time. And I feel like I did. They did a great job. So thank you to In Your Ear Studios.
Next, we're going to talk about how do you actually let people know that you did it. Book's done, audio's done, but you got to get that out and let people know. So that is what we're going to talk about next. Once it's done, once everything is done, the book is done, it is printed, you've seen your proof, and you've gone through that emotional journey of looking at your proof, the audio's done. This chapter is really focused on letting people know that this thing is out there. So a little bit about, did you, and you know marketing well, was there a whole plan here? You knew exactly what to do? How did you think about actually getting this out into the market for folks to experience it?
There was a semblance of a plan.
Okay.
It's Excel spreadsheet, MBA here. There's an Excel spreadsheet with multiple tabs, and there's a tab for influencers, like people that I have in my circle that I'm like, maybe they would read a copy and say something about it on their socials, or what kind of newsletters can I be a part of? So I've been to college twice, so I have an undergraduate degree and a graduate degree, and so the institutions that I went to that are also mentioned in the book, do they have alumni newsletters where they talk about milestones, things that their alumni are doing? So what are those newsletters that I can be a part of? Book clubs. Do I know people with book clubs? Specifically for me, because this is sort of like a DEI topic, I started thinking about employee resource groups. So we have employee resource groups at the company I work at. There are other companies that have employee resource groups, I'm sure. So just sort of as I'm thinking, I'm writing these all down into different tabs of this spreadsheet to try to keep them organized in some kind of way. I think a lot of people, when they make a marketing plan, they sort of timeline it out. At this point, we're going to do this. At this point, we're going to do that. My life was not set up in such a way that I could really do that. Truth be told, I just didn't prioritize it.
Yeah.
And I just said, when the book comes out, we're going to do these things in no particular order. The book is out forever. We have so much time. We have so much time to do these things. And so I think what I could have done, and the more traditional way to do this, is to get what they call ARCs, so Advanced Reader Copy, ARC. So you order these advanced reader copies and you send them out in advance to these publications, right? So to the people that you want to review your book, this is how you're going to get, if you want someone to write the foreword, I didn't have somebody do that. You would have to get them the advanced reader copy. Same thing with the blurbs. If you want people to say things on the back or on the inside about your book, you would need to get them a copy beforehand. I did not do that. And I said to myself, down the road, if I get someone that is so willing to do the blurbs or the foreword, then we just publish a new version of the book, and that's okay. So there wasn't really a plan. If I could go back in time and do it again, I probably would have thought more about the timeline of the release. So I was traveling internationally right before the book came out, and so when it was time to get that proof, they call it a galley copy, I wasn't here, and I wasn't even in a place where I could get mail reliably. That's on me. Don't do that. And so I got the galley copy just a few weeks ahead of the launch date. And there is a cutoff to when you can make changes. And so the copy that went out into the world was actually not something I saw in advance. So I saw a copy. I didn't see the copy. I do as I say, not as I do, is the advice here.
Sure. Hey.
But also what I learned is that the galley copy is not 100% accurate to what you will get. So print is inconsistent. And I think I can say that across the board. So even with this book, if you look at the spine, the words here are not evenly distributed here. But if you go to some of the other copies, they will be. It's just inconsistent. And that was a thing that bothered me that I just had to get over. But like the bleed on the copy, like the top and the bottom, not always consistent.
Yeah.
The color of the book. So the book is supposed to be this pinkish color. If you ordered from Amazon, it might be more of a peach color. That was one thing. I did get 2 copies from Amazon in advance. Neither of them were exactly what I wanted it to be. So I made a tweak and then I just prayed about it. So I've seen copies that have come from Amazon and I'm happy with how it came out. I don't think necessarily the exact hue of the color is what's the most important. But I should have built in more time for that. And so just a word to the wise, like just think about your timeline of when you put out that date. When you register the ISBN numbers, you do have to put in the date that you think you will publish. Yeah. Just be aware you can go in and change that. Yeah. So that's not written in stone. I actually did have to go in and change it. I pushed a month from when I originally thought I was going to put it out. But that was a long answer for no. There was not a plan. There was just some ideas.
Yeah. Were you thinking across a number of channels to tell people? So you already had a presence on the internet, both, I think, social, website. Did you create a brand new dedicated presence for this? Were you also like, oh, I should probably show up and be in places? Like where did you go to let people know this was out?
Social media, definitely. Yeah. There's more buildup I could have done there too. Yeah. And there's lots of blogs that will tell you, like share your process with people. And I could have done a lot better of a job of that because that's how you build the anticipation for people to buy those books and you can have them pre-order copies. I didn't do a lot of those things, but you can and you should. And so there's that. My website was already there because I do some coaching and consulting as well. I do public speaking. And so I just tweaked the website I already had. So I had a page that was dedicated to my writing because I have the Substack, but then I sort of edited that page, augmented that page to focus more on the book. And so that has been really good. Yeah, there are different things I thought about social media. I think one thing I didn't think about that I wish I had was when you are approaching these different outlets. So let's say you want to be on the news or on a popular podcast. They want some credibility to your book, right? So I am not a celebrity. I do not come with tons and tons of followers. And so what would have been helpful was if I had these sort of reputable, credible sources giving me reviews. And so if you want those kind of reviews from library journals, Publishers Weekly, that kind of thing, you have to get them your book 3 to 4 months in advance. There's so many books coming out all the time. For a lot of them, that is a hard, fast rule. Like once you've passed that sort of mark, you can't submit. Yeah. And so I didn't learn that until the book was out. It's too late. There are some ways around it, which I'm trying to navigate. So if you put out an ebook or if you put out an audiobook, the timelines on that are less stringent with some of these organizations. And so I've missed the deadline for print reviews, but I'm able to get some other types of reviews. And so that's going to be helpful. But I should have worked that into the timeline.
Yeah, sorry.
But that's why we're here, so that other people can learn from my hiccups.
We were together, I guess it's been weeks at this point. I got a lovely invitation to be around you and some of your dear friends. This is mine. It's my book.
Can't have it.
It's mine because she wrote in it. She wrote a nice note to me. But there were a bunch of us in a space, which I thought was lovely for you to sit and you read from it. But I don't think that was planned necessarily. Like seemed like you were encouraged to do that, which I think was great.
We had planned to do some kind of remarks. Like you gather people want to hear from you. I'm not a celebrity. And so like I've been to book signings before where literally you stand in line and the person signs the book. You get 2 seconds with them and then that is it.
Yep.
I just didn't feel like that was the experience we were trying to set up for. And so I wanted this book to create conversations. And so I built that event around that idea. So I had like 5 different interactive activities for people to sort of grapple with the themes from the book, to sort of do some own reflection, self-reflection in a way where they were writing things down or sharing things, but not in a way that felt too vulnerable. So I realize not everybody wants to share their story with the world or with strangers or with anyone. But I do think it's important to write things down. And so, anonymously, I was asking people to sort of share a word that they felt described their identity that maybe you don't see when you just look at them, or to put a pin on a map to a place that they would trace their origins to and maybe tag some words. Like there was actually like tags you could write on and put on the pin, like what connects you to that place. And that was really powerful at that event for me to be able to see the things people were writing on the board and on the map and be able to work that into my remarks to say, these activities and the conversation that you experienced with each other before we sat down is the whole reason I wrote the book. The reason I wrote the book is because I want people to take from my experience and use it as a point of inflection to say, are these things that I have thought about? And if they are there things that I've shared with people who I hold close and dear to me to sort of understand like what they're thinking about and have a dialogue about these things? I wanted it to create these spaces. And so while I didn't necessarily plan ahead for all of the things that I said, it wasn't like scripted. I did want to say something just to let people know that this is what I want the book to be for. Like, don't just read it and be like, that was great, and then put it on your shelf. Like, read it and have a conversation with someone else about it. You don't even necessarily have to tell them the book or say anything about the book. But if there's something that the book says that resonates with you and you're like, I would love to have a conversation with someone about that, like, do it. And so that was me creating the space for that. And so I think that went well. And so I want that to sort of set the stage for future things that I do. I want to do more events that are more interactive. And so I'm going to take some of that and sort of build on it. And that'll be great.
Once you are in the world and people can hit the buy button, I wonder if it's similar to what some of us do. How many likes? How often were you looking at sales?
Every day, still. Every single day. And anytime there's just one, I like that. Exciting. Like, people still care. This goes back to the conversation about Amazon rules this industry. So if people come back to me and they say, I really enjoyed your book, or I'm really enjoying your book, I always say, please, if you feel inclined, leave a review on Amazon. If you are not on Amazon, leave a review on Goodreads. Because if you have ever written a book, if you've ever written anything on social media or posted a photo, if you have a business especially, you'll understand this. Those reviews are like what you live and die by. That's how you show up in the rankings. That's how you show up in the suggestions box. That's how the algorithms work. The AI is looking for, are other people clicking on this? Are other people saying positive words about this book? And so you put the book out because you want people to read it. And so I feel like I'm still like in an obsessive phase where I'm checking every day. That's probably not healthy. I don't recommend it. But it's helping me sort of track if people are reading, engaging, purchasing the book. And it also, for me, is a motivator. I want to see that number go up. And the number's not going to go up by me just sitting idle. And so continuing to look at the number and wanting the number to be higher is my push to do the things on the marketing plan, since I did not set deadlines for myself or make a timeline, right? Like every day I'm sort of thinking, okay, what's one more thing off of this spreadsheet that I can sort of tackle? Who can I reach out to, or what kind of posts can I put up? It's just a motivator.
Yeah. Earlier in our conversation, you said that the hard part comes after the book is done. What's the hard part where we think of is the hard part after it's done?
Figuring out where you can promote this book.
Yeah.
Like you can say, like my target audience is biracial millennials. Like, where are they? Todd, do you know off the top of your head?
I know where you are.
Where would you go to find these people? And so just getting creative about like, what are the organizations that I can reach out to? What are the publications that I can reach out to? Part of it is the brainstorming. And then part of it is the actual outreach itself. And then even after the outreach itself, it's the process and procedure of it all. So one thing I didn't talk about is I want to be in the library. Like I want my book to be accessible. And to do that, you don't need to be, but you probably should be registered with the Library of Congress. So you need this LCCN number. Luckily for me, I came across this before I went to print. So similar to the way you need an ISBN and that number has to be on that copyright page, so does this Library of Congress control number. And so you have to do that in advance. It doesn't cost anything, but that gets you cataloged in their system. And that catalog system is how a lot of libraries find your book to put it on the shelf. That's just step one. You get the number, you put it in the book. The next step is actually reaching out to the libraries. Just because you're in the catalog doesn't mean that they order the book and put it on the shelf. And so I'm still finding what those processes are. It's different for every library. And so here locally, I have engaged with Richmond Public Libraries and Henrico County Public Libraries. They have 2 different programs. For both of those library systems, you donate the book and that's how it gets on the shelf. But you do have to like fill out this form and engage with them in that kind of way. And so, I had to do the research to figure that out. And it's just, everything takes time and research. And so the hard part is you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But I love searching my way through ambiguous situations. It's like the story of my life is you just have to figure it out, dive in and figure it out. And we live in a time where technology makes it fairly easy to get the answers that you need. What's the onus that's on you as the author is just knowing what questions to ask.
Yeah.
And I mean, that goes for any time you're engaging with Google or ChatGPT or any platform that's a search or answer platform. Like you have to know the right questions to ask.
Yeah. We're going to wrap up our time together and then close this thing out. So we'll be back in a moment. We've spent this time talking about the entire process from the initial idea all the way through publishing and promotion. So if you haven't gone back and watched the previous chapters, you can spend time with each one. This is just us kind of wrapping up, and I'm curious about, I always wonder this as I spend time with entrepreneurs, folks who do a lot of work to get the products and our ideas out in the world. What is the joy for you now that it's done and it's finished? I hope it feels finished.
It does.
What's the joy for you now that it's in the world?
Having conversations with people, right? Like that's what I wanted this book to be for. And the joy for me is having people who, even people who haven't read the book yet, people have sent me messages to say, like, I'm so proud of you. Or I've gotten a message from a stranger through my website that said, I had a book signing the other day. They were like, I can't make it to your book signing, but I just wanted to tell you thank you for being real and being vulnerable and sharing your story. And I can't wait to read your book. And it's affirming. And I love that. And I love the conversations that are coming out of it, even with my own dad. So like, I'm very close with my parents. And when I gave my dad an advanced copy to read, because a lot of what is written here is also a reflection of him and his life. And he said to me, I can't put it down because I'm learning so much about you. And I don't know. I don't think I was expecting that. In my head, he knew all the things that were in that book, but he didn't.
Yeah.
And so I'm really enjoying it's bringing me closer to the people that are in my life, and I love that. And it's also introducing me to other people and getting me to learn their stories, which is nice. And it's starting dialogue, and I love that. And I know there's more to come, so that's exciting.
The great part, and I think hard part about putting anything into the world, it's in the world, and there are people who are giving you that energy, right? Appreciation, and they're excited. There's that other energy too.
It's out there.
What are you doing? What have you learned that's helpful to keep you safe, keep you grounded, keep perspective? Like, how do you lean into the joy versus, because we do, like, we can fall victim to the hate and that negative energy. What helps you kind of protect and guard and lean more into the joy of it?
I am fortunate that I've had a small business before. So I've been on Yelp and on these review sites where people leave bad reviews without giving any feedback. And not everybody is going to like the content that I put out into the world, whether it's a business or a book or whatever it is. And I'm okay with that. Like, that's the beauty of the world that we live in, right? You can have your own opinions. And that can be true. And I would like to know the why. So I have already gotten a 1-star review on my book on a platform with no feedback. And I would just like to know why. And I think the way that I'm dealing with that is just giving myself grace to be like, that is one person's opinion and they are welcome to have that opinion. I wish they would have told me why, but I can't control that and I can't reach out to them to find out. So I just have to be okay with that, and just hope that enough people find this valuable enough to take the time to go leave a better review so that the book can reach more people. It's part just giving yourself grace, I think. And a part just being patient, right? Like, there is more still to come. And so you can acknowledge, and you should acknowledge when these things happen, but also recognize like this is a moment in time and more things are coming and more great things are coming. And you don't want to let those little setbacks sort of like rob you of your current joy and the joy that's still coming, because I think some people can take those and look at it as a reason to not keep pushing and not keep doing. But I try to use it as the opposite. I use it as fuel to keep going, and to keep trying to tell my story about why I put this book out in the first place and what I hope people get out of it.
Yeah. Speaking of where you're going, huge milestone, absolute huge milestone. And so on your journey, now that milestone is reached, you've hit that mile marker. But what do you see when you look down the road now that this is accomplished? This was the timeline. I wrote it down. This started 2009, right? And so there's a lot of years here. I'm looking at my daughter here, like who she was then and now who she is now. That's a lot of years. It's almost 15 years. When you look ahead down the road, now that this milestone is accomplished, what do you see? What are you imagining for yourself as an author in the world?
I am imagining just greater community. I see this as a way to open the door to meet more people and meet more opportunities. And I'm trying not to pigeonhole myself into having that look like anything specific. I don't really know. I would love to use this to engage more with universities and with young people. But But I'm not really sure is the answer. I think it looks like more opportunities to speak, more opportunities to travel, more opportunities to meet people. But most importantly, just more license to continue being myself, right? Like, you can continue to move in the world as your most authentic self because you've put a lot of very vulnerable words in this book. People really know you, and people are accepting of that, and the reviews are showing that, and that's really great. And so I hope that I can stay motivated by that, and it's motivating other people to also share their stories and just feel okay being authentically who they are.
Yeah. If people have not purchased the book, where do they go? How do they do that?
PatriciaBMoore.com is the website. There is an author tab. There's a lot of information there about the book, but also where you can buy the book. So all of the digital retailers are listed there on its books to read, the number 2.com/Blackinese, but that link is also there on the site. There's more retailers coming, and then part of the process is trying to figure out how do you get your book in brick and mortar stores. So right now I am in 3. So the Valentine Museum here in Richmond, I'm in that gift shop. They are wonderful and gracious and have all sorts of great things by local creators. So definitely check out their gift shop. It's in the Fallen Acorn Bookshop, which is in Williamsburg. So if you are in the Colonial Williamsburg area, check them out. And then Agora Downtown, which is a coffee shop in Fredericksburg. So 3 bookshops, brick and mortar, and growing. But yeah, PatriciaBMoore.com on the author tab.
My name is Todd B. Waldo. This has been a conversation with Patricia B. Moore, author of Blackinese, Reflections on Race and Ethnicity from a Biracial Millennial. Once again, special thanks to the folks here at Canvas, Ace, and the entire team for being so generous and helping us with this space. And thank you for watching.
And thank you.
Glad to. Take care.